Dusk settles over a small Judean room lamplight, trembling on clay walls, as a story of divine initiative begins in the hush of ordinary life. Dust lifts in slow spirals, and the soft scrape of a broom marks a search that reveals how God moves toward the hidden and overlooked. In this lamplit threshold, the doctrine of divine compassion takes form not in thunder, but in careful attention to what seems small and lost. We often measure worth by brightness and noise, yet the kingdom sets value by presence, purpose, and the image stamped by its maker. Picture the coin lying under a chair, cold against stone, silent as regret, while mercy lights a wick and refuses to accept the loss. This is contrast in motion, darkness, hiding value, light, uncovering it. Human forgetfulness, misplacing treasure, relentless grace, recovering what still bears royal imprint. Hear the broom cross the floor, steady and patient, and learn that repentance begins not with panic, but with illumination that shows where to turn. The doctrine term is simple and weighty. Grace precedes our steps, then invites our response, because the searcher already calls us worthy of being found. Consider a widow counting a small purse in winter, each coin mapping tomorrow's bread. So too, the Father reckons with care, never writing souls off. Implication rises like the lamp's glow on the ceiling. If God seeks like this, communities must refuse contempt and celebrate restoration more than reputation. Let your heart become a swept floor, clearing excuses and pride, so the brightness of mercy can strike metal and wake hope with a clear ring. Notice the methodical rhythm of love lamp sweep search. It is patient process, proving that salvation is not a scramble, but a purposeful rescue. We contrast public applause with private faithfulness, because heaven's joy often begins in unseen corners, where God's attention corrects our careless valuations. Illustration turns the camera low, following bristles through dust until a dull edge catches light, teaching that revelation often arrives by inches rather than bursts. Implication lands gently. Do not despise slow awakenings, for the Spirit traces patient circles, persuading conscience until desire meets truth and courage steps forward. Pastoral charge follows the soundscape trim. The wick of your attention lift prayer like a lamp, and seek the overlooked with practical solidarity and joy. Return to the room and feel its quiet widen, because every search prepared by grace is already crowned with promised gladness when the lost stands recovered. Contrast reappears. Anxiety counts risks, but love counts persons, and the arithmetic of heaven places one name above ledger's strategies and tired reputations. Illustration listens for the faint metallic whisper beneath the chair, a near silent witness that value persists even when our feelings register only absence. Implication sharpens like light on a coin's face. Confession is consent to be found, not a payment, because grace funds the search from the beginning. Pastoral charge, then, is simple and brave. Open your hands, allow the lamp to reach your corners, and welcome the one who already wants you home. As the room brightens, attend to this hope. The seeker's joy is not noise, but recognition that lost worth has been restored to its purpose. The room is small and clean-swept lamp, raised higher, and the search begins with careful eyes, tracing shadows along the floor. Doctrine term surfaces quietly. Prevenient grace, the light that arrives first, so the lost can be seen before they can call for help. Contrast stands beside the doorframe. Negligence leaves value buried, but love refuses. Drift and order returns where despair once settled. Illustration turns to the threshold mat. where grit hides edges and the bristles hum like prayer, steadily naming what matters. Implication follows the lamplight. When God searches no corner, stays sovereign, and forgotten places become sites of disclosure and joy. Pastoral charge lands gently raise your attention like a lamp and examine habits that dim compassion for those nearest your feet. Context expands to the alley outside, cooled by evening, while the house keeps silence as a sacred workplace of patient mercy. Doctrine term clarifies sanctification as a sweep that gathers fragments, teaching hearts to prefer clarity over the comfort of familiar dust. Contrast gathers itself self-righteousness, counts trophies loudly, but holiness counts persons quietly, one name at a time. Illustration shows a stool, scraped back, revealing a faint circle where the coin rested like a ghost of worth, waiting for return. Implication brightens the corner's communities that prize neat appearances may still hide loss unless light is welcomed without panic. Pastoral charge invites practice, open a window of confession, and let breath, light, and truth work together without theatrics. Context listens to the broom's rhythm, a metronome for hope, while footsteps avoid pride's quick judgments and follow the map of care. Doctrine term moves to vocation, where the search itself is worship, because love honors value by refusing to abandon it to chance. Contrast enters through arithmetic ledgers, can balance while hearts fail, yet heaven balances by mercy and refuses to forfeit the one. Illustration frames a hand steadying the lamp knuckles, warm, as amber light glides under a bench like sunrise, crossing a narrow street. Implication speaks to leaders' authority without tenderness, loses the room, but authority with patience gathers the scattered back home. Pastoral charge presses simple action, slow your pace, name one person, and choose presence over commentary until courage rises. Context returns to the floor, where hairline cracks hold secrets, and a soft draft moves ash in tiny constellations across the tiles. Doctrine term turns to repentance as consent to be found, not payment, which frees the conscience to face light without bargaining. Contrast tests motives, sorrow can parade as virtue, yet true grief for sin protects the weak and refuses to weaponize shame. Illustration pauses by a clay jar, its rim chipped while shadows part to show a metallic curve like the moon in a shallow well. Implication cautions the zealous pace your counsel because bruised reeds heal under warmth, not under lectures delivered at speed. Pastoral charge suggests habits, schedule unhurried listening, set a small lamp of prayer, and notice who sits at the margins. Context remembers the morning market voices, rising and falling, and the value of a coin measured against bread, oil, and rent. Doctrine term names imago Dei, the stamp of royal likeness, which grounds worth beyond utility, mood, or current contribution. Contrast calls out cynicism, which whispers that some will never change, while grace insists on the search, even when hope feels thin. Illustration follows dust motes, crossing the beam, tiny planets, gliding until one brief sparkle betrays presence under the chair leg. Implication sifts budgets and plans strategies, serve people not the reverse, and programs must bend when a name lies missing. Pastoral charge keeps it concrete, send a message, set a chair, and arrange your evening to welcome one who drifts at the edges. Context revisits the woman's steady breath, the slight hiss of oil, and the broom's arc tracing patience like cursive on the floor. Doctrine term names perseverance, the grace-powered endurance that refuses to collapse the search into convenience or quick outcomes. Contrast exposes fatigue's shortcut, which prefers resignation, while faith gathers small energies and tries again with tender focus. Illustration: here's a soft tap under the bench, a sound thin as a pin, yet sharp enough to arrest the heart and slow the hand. Implication tightens the frame. Spiritual attention grows by repetition and consistent care forms spaces where discovery is likely. Pastoral charge outlines a rhythm light: look, listen, and only then speak, so your words arrive as confirmation rather than noise. Context widens to neighbors behind thin walls, their murmurs blending with the brush, while dignity guides the search without spectacle. Doctrine term considers joy not as entertainment, but as recognition that purpose restored is a note tuned back to pitch. Contrast weighs outcomes. Finding the coin adds almost nothing to status, yet it restores trust, memory, and tomorrow's humble plan. Illustration cuts to a close-up of the floor, where a narrow glint waits like a closed eye deciding to wake. Implication reaches theology of community celebration trains perception, so we see grace faster and shame more slowly. Pastoral charge calls for culture: resist gossip, prefer applause, for reconciliation, and mark calendars with the returns of the lost. Context keeps the door unlatched, inviting air while the lamp rides higher and the room learns hope by its growing brightness. Doctrine term names adoption, the welcome that changes status, so belonging is granted before performance can earn a place. Contrast unmasks control, which wants neat stories, while redemption loves messy middles that still move toward promise. Illustration shows fingertips brushing crumbs aside, careful not to crush the new glimmer that rises like dawn from stone. Implication recalibrates habits, make room for setbacks, since grace writes progress as a living line, not a single leap. Pastoral charge readies hospitality: set water to boil, prepare simple bread, and plan words that honor courage rather than craft image. Context settles again into silence, pierced only by bristles, and a soft exhale signals patience, refusing to rush the final inch. Doctrine term names providence, the wise care that arranges chances and nudges attention, so discovery meets need at the right time. Contrast reviews motives. Do we seek people or victories? Because triumph without persons is loss traced in brighter ink. Illustration tilts the lamp, and a bright ring flashes unmistakable and near, as if the room itself smiles at the sight. Implication gathers theology of witness: revelation becomes public good when private faithfulness holds steady in common rooms. Pastoral charge returns to prayer: bless the places you stand, and expect the Spirit to dignify ordinary work with holy outcomes. The room warms as metal catches light, and relief arrives like rain after drought, quiet and complete across the face of value. Theology gathers into gratitude because the search has shaped the seeker, and patience has taught love how to count again. Resolve settles: we will search with God's cadence, honoring worth first, and letting joy rise naturally when recovery comes. The house glows warmer, the wick trimmed higher, while the floor shows a patient map of lines where years have pressed their stories. Doctrine term focuses on incarnation, God's nearness in ordinary rooms, where holiness wears work clothes and handles common things with care. Contrast exposes spectacle, which shouts from stages, while redemption often whispers through chores that honor small worth without applause. Illustration pans to a woven basket by the door, its fibers shining faintly as the broom nudges crumbs that hide a quiet glimmer. Implication gathers. If grace moves among brooms and lamps, then ministry belongs to kitchens and shop floors as surely as to pulpit. Pastoral charge is practical. Sanctify your routines and let prayer trace the same paths your feet take through a day's humble circle. Context opens toward the coin itself, a small silver circle, cool to the touch, valuable not for display, but for sustaining tomorrow. Doctrine term names. Stewardship, the entrusted care of resources and souls, where faith honors value by guarding what supports life and love. Contrast confronts waste that forgets people counting prestige while neglecting hunger, whereas wisdom keeps the one because the one matters. Illustration sets the lamp low near a crack where a thin crescent of metal hides like a pale eyelid waiting for light. Implication leans to policy and habit budgets are moral maps, and the first path is toward persons who bear enduring image and need. Pastoral charge urges inventory. Review your lists, write one name in the margin, and bend schedules until mercy fits and stays. Context shifts to the neighborhood narrow alleys carrying spice and bread, while a private faithfulness readies a public joy. Doctrine term invites covenant, the bond that holds through seasons, declaring that God's yes to persons outlasts our scattered memory. Contrast names transaction, which ends at payment, while covenant continues at presence, keeping watch when attention grows thin. Illustration shows a cord of 10 coins braided for a bride, each circle a promise, each clink a history of vows and hopes. Implication stays gentle. Even if this coin is not from a bridal set, love treats any entrusted good as if it sang of promise. Pastoral charge asks reverence. Hold other people's stories like silver and protect them from careless hands and hurried judgments. Context lowers the camera to the floor's mosaic, chipped and honest, where light gathers in small lakes against uneven stone. Doctrine turns to illumination, the Spirit's work of making truth visible, so desire can walk where denial once slept. Contrast reveals distraction, which multiplies noise, while revelation reduces excess until only needed things remain in view. Illustration follows the beam as it slides beneath a stool, catching a thin ring that answers light with its own quiet sheen. Implication traces discipleship. Attention is apprenticeship, and we become like what we watch with patience and gratitude. Pastoral charge suggests a rule: choose one practice to guard sight and let it clear the dust that hides value near your feet. Context returns to the woman's steady hands, one holding light, one guiding the broom, both moving with a liturgy of careful motion. Doctrine term highlights mercy, not as sentiment but as stubborn fidelity to restore what belongs to love's circle of care. Contrast unmasks indifference that shrugs at loss, while mercy refuses to normalize absence, naming it as wound and calling for repair. Illustration listens for the soft tick of metal under bristles, a sound like a heartbeat returning after a long quiet. Implication meets leadership. The first duty is to notice, because you cannot heal what you will not admit is missing. Pastoral charge keeps scale humane. Start with one, welcome one, and let the room teach you patience for the rest. Context holds the lamp close to a wall, where soot shadows move like clouds, and the search bends low with unembarrassed purpose. Doctrine term names condescension in its holy sense, the gracious stooping of God, which refuses to despise smallness or dirt. Contrast critiques perfectionism that avoids mess, while love learns the texture of floors and the angles where dust resists. Illustration catches fingerprints on the lamp's belly, a map of touch that proves attention has weight and warmth. Implication corrects pedagogy truth. Remembered by hands outlasts slogans. So training must include tasks that dignify the hidden. Pastoral charge is tactile pray while you tidy, and let your fingers learn the gospel by honoring what is easy to overlook. Context widens to neighbors called by name, their steps soft, outside curious but respectful, drawn by the lamp's steady promise. Doctrine term considers reconciliation, the mending of distance, where joy travels from house to house, like light passed from wick to wick. Contrast rejects voyeurism that enjoys pain, while the gospel forbids exploitation and chooses privacy until celebration can do no harm. Illustration imagines doors opening with gentle hinges, air shifting and faces brightening as word spreads that hope is near. Implication teaches culture making good news, like small rooms first, then moves outward through trust rather than hype. Pastoral charge trains tongues speak less during searching and speak more during finding, so words align with care and truth. Context lingers on the drachma's edges, faintly worn testimony to Aaron's markets and the long arithmetic of survival. Doctrine term invokes providence, the wise ordering that arranges moments so sight and sound converge at just the right second. Contrast disarms fatalism that shrugs at chance, while faith perceives guidance in the very ordinariness of repeated tries. Illustration narrows to the floor, seam where a bright point winks twice like a quiet star, signaling a traveler from afar. Implication nurtures patience. Often the next attempt is the one not because we earned it, but because care stayed long enough. Pastoral charge counsels, rest and return, pause, briefly breathe, and then resume with gentleness toward yourself and others. Context hears distant laughter from a courtyard life continuing while this small drama teaches the weight of one restored item. Doctrine term turns to justification in simple speech, the verdict of acceptance that meets confession with welcome rather than penalty. Contrast resists penance as payment, since restoration is gift, though it reshapes habits and asks us to walk in new patterns. Illustration frames the coin's face. Finely bright inscriptions, legible stories, intact value, returned to circulation with quiet dignity. Implication settles policies of grace churches must make return easy and shaming hard, because heaven prefers welcome over hurdle. Pastoral charge gives steps design paths back assign companions, and keep doors unlatched when courage knocks at awkward hours. Context softens the room's noises, oil murmuring, broom resting, while breath lengthens into grateful expectancy. Doctrine term gathers adoption and assurance, the steady sonship and daughterhood that anchor identity when memory forgets worth. Contrast checks insecurity chasing titles, while belovedness frees work from proving value and turns effort toward love. Illustration tilts the lamp higher light, washing the ceiling like dawn, and the floor answers with quiet constellations of clean. Implication shows ethics rooted in identity. Those found become finders, repeating the search with the same patience they received. Pastoral charge commissions gently take your lamp to another room and keep your tone kind when you name the missing. The air brightens as discovery nears, and the room feels larger, as if walls move back to make space for relief. Theology gathers threads into one cord: God's nearness, patient mercy, and wise care, joining to restore what still bears royal likeness. Resolve stands ready for celebration, because when value returns to its purpose, community learns again how to count by love. Context tightens at floor level, the lamp steady when a bright ring answers light, and relief breaks across the room like quiet weather. Doctrine term names repentance as joyful return, a turning toward welcome, not a payment, because grace has already funded the search. Contrast appears at the threshold, grumbling counts costs loudly, while heaven counts restoration and turns ledgers into songs. Illustration shows fingers lifting the coin, dust smearing, then clearing the face, brightening as purpose breathes again. Implication follows swiftly. Where value is restored, community must choose celebration over suspicion and open hands before questions. Pastoral charge invites practice. Train your voice to bless first, and let inquiry wait until dignity is safely back in place. Context widens to the doorway, air moving and steps quickening across the lane as word travels to trusted neighbors. Doctrine term highlights communion, the shared life that multiplies joy by distributing it, so private gratitude becomes common feast. Contrast tests motive: spectacle craves applause, but fellowship seeks the person protecting story while enlarging gladness. Illustration lays bread on a small table, water poured clear and faces bright with the peace of something mended. Implication shapes culture: congregations that rehearse rejoicing become safe harbors, where returns are frequent and shame dies fast. Pastoral charge keeps it simple: plan, gentle, welcomes, learn names, and let meals carry the message that home has room. Context shifts upward in imagination, where unseen courtyards echo with delight that outruns our shy celebrations. Doctrine term turns to angelic witness, the created chorus that honors God's mercy whenever the lost embraces light. Contrast dismisses cynicism that fears manipulation, because genuine return authenticates itself by patient fruit and steady steps. Illustration pictures windows opening to night air, joy crossing roofs, like music carried by the cooling breeze. Implication teaches confidence: when heaven rejoices, earth need not hesitate, and churches can match tempo with trust. Pastoral charge calibrates tone: celebrate without flattery, honor courage, and promise companionship through tomorrow's ordinary trials. Context returns to the woman's face, lined by work, now softened as stewardship meets success with quiet gratitude. Doctrine term names wisdom as skilled love attention, shaped by fear of God, making practical choices that protect entrusted good. Contrast exposes dismissiveness that belittles domestic labor, while Scripture places theology in kitchens and hallways without apology. Illustration tracks the lamp as it hangs on a nail, the room gathered the coin resting in an open palm. Implication urges recognition: honor hidden vocations, because the kingdom advances through patient chores that rescue overlooked worth. Pastoral charge recommends habits: thank those who keep rooms bright, and learn their craft of noticing before speaking. Context hears market sounds outside, bargaining voices rising, while this small recovery recalibrates a household's tomorrow. Doctrine term turns to justice, ordering resources toward persons, especially the vulnerable, so budgets confess what we truly value. Contrast resists prestige purchases that starve compassion, because holiness spends where love demands and saves where vanity beckons. Illustration counts simple costs, bread, oil, rent, and a little held back for a neighbor in leaner weeks. Implication sets policy. Churches and homes should tie celebration to generosity, so joy spills into provision for others. Pastoral charge proposes action. Set aside a mercy envelope and let today's recovery finance someone else's new start. Context frames a circle of neighbors seated, close conversation gentle, while leaders listen more than they direct. Doctrine term is shepherding attentive care that guides without crushing, guarding boundaries while lifting burdens in season. Contrast rejects control that mistakes order for life, since maturity grows best under patient guidance and near watchful love. Illustration shows a chair left open for the one not yet home, a visible promise that return is expected and welcome. Implication writes process restoration plans should be humane, clear, and hopeful, with steps that heal rather than humiliate. Pastoral charge invites teams pairwise companionship with practical helps and pace expectations to match a tender conscience. Context quiets as stories surface, honest and measured, while gratitude teaches words to be accurate and kind. Doctrine term moves to witness, telling truth about mercy's reach, not to magnify failure, but to magnify the finder. Contrast avoids theatrics that turn pain into currency, choosing instead the plain miracle of a changed direction. Illustration pans to the coin again, not larger than before, yet luminous by context, because meaning has returned with it. Implication counsels, archives, remember the day, and the practices that worked so future searches begin wiser and calmer. Pastoral charge assigns a scribe, write thank you notes, record lessons, and turn experience into a gentle field guide. Context senses resistance fade, like a draft closing, yet vigilance remains because old shadows know familiar corners. Doctrine term names warfare in sober tones, the contest of truth and lies, where attention must stay anchored in light. Contrast disarms paranoia, since victory here is ordinary faithfulness, repeated, not drama staged to impress the room. Illustration shows Dr. Bolt's checked lamp trimmed again, and the coin stored where care prevents another costly search. Implication secures routines. Holiness loves good habits because they guard joy without demanding constant heroics. Pastoral charge maintains cadence. Keep prayers small and steady. Keep counsel short and clear, and keep friendship near. Context hears a psalm hummed under breath, community becoming itself again as trust returns to daily circulation. Doctrine term considers church as a house of recovery, a place where finding becomes normal and welcome feels practiced. Contrast critiques performance religion that hoards purity, while the gospel disperses mercy until ruined reputations bloom again. Illustration traces a map of homes across the lane, each a small lighthouse promising presence in the next hard night. Implication sets metrics measure health by restored people, not by crowded calendars, and by quiet faithfulness more than noise. Pastoral charge steers leaders tell better stories than fear and keep invitations warm long after novelty cools. Context shifts to the street stars, beginning the evening cool enough for travel and talk on the way. Doctrine term turns to mission, sending found ones to search with the same patience that located them in their darkness. Contrast corrects haste that counts decisions, while love counts persons and stays present when growth slows. Illustration shows two figures leaving with a lamp between them, light shared conversation, low and hopeful. Implication widens horizon, neighborhoods change when patient seekers multiply because attention reorganizes space and time. Pastoral charge gives next steps map, 3 names, pray brief prayers, and schedules small visits that privilege listening. Context gathers the evening's themes, room recollected neighbors' content, and the coin at peace in its rightful place. Doctrine term braids mercy, justice, and joy into one rope strong enough to pull shame from deep wells. Contrast rebukes grudges that keep score because the cross erased the book, and resurrection writes new ledgers of grace. Illustration images a ledger closing a meal opening and a quiet chorus of thanks rising like steam from bread. Implication clarifies identity. We are stewards of found things and found people, and we count by love, not by fear. Pastoral charge blesses futures. Hold the lamp high, keep the broom near, and welcome each day as another chance to recover worth. Context softens tonight, quiet footsteps fading, and the room returning to its ordinary order, shaped by care. Doctrine term names Sabbath as trust, the rest that confesses God keeps watch, so sleep can be free of anxious inventory. Contrast dismisses vigilance that refuses bed, while faith locks doors and leaves outcomes in larger hands. Illustration shows the lamp, lowered wick pinched, and a last glance at the coin where it rests among its fellows. Implication balances zeal with limits. Love does today's work and leaves tomorrow's to the mercy that never sleeps. Pastoral charge closes the circle. Bless your house, bless your neighbors, and trust that the finder delights to keep finding. The air holds a gentle hush, and gratitude settles like linen over the room's clean lines. Theology concludes plainly worth is not created by attention. It is revealed by light and guarded by love. Resolve stands firm. We will live as people who search, people who welcome, and people who rejoice when restoration arrives. Night leans close in the quiet room, the lamp steady in its bracket, and the floor holds the trace of a finished search. Doctrine term frames gratitude as right response, the heart bowing to the giver before plans race to use the gift. Contrast warns that relief can drift into pride, while worship keeps recovery from becoming a new platform for self. Illustration shows the coin alongside its companions, edges aligned silver warm from touch and light. Implication notes that restored things belong to purpose, not display, and must circulate toward need again. Pastoral charge invites a vow: we will treat found people as family, not trophies, and shelter them with patience. The room hushes like a held breath, wick trimmed low, inviting a pause long enough to hear conscience settle. Doctrine term names examine the honest review that lets grace read the day and teach the heart to recognize truth. Contrast rejects self-accusation that performs despair, while repentance remains simple speech under steady light. Illustration traces a slow hand across the table, feeling the grain as thoughts arrange themselves without hurry. Implication promises wisdom to those who linger, because unhurried sight often reveals what rushing hides. Pastoral charge suggests a practice end days with thanks, confession, and hope, letting silence carry the final word. Air cools near the open door, and the room feels larger, as if hope stretched its walls by a hand's breadth. Doctrine term centers assurance, the Spirit's witness, that belovedness remains when moods and memories flicker. Contrast exposes identity built on roles fragile as straw, while adoption holds steady like oak in wind. Illustration rests the coin in a cloth pouch, not hidden but kept where daily work remembers its value. Implication grounds ethics in identity, so effort becomes offering, not panic, to earn what was already given. Pastoral charge blesses names. Speak over your life the truth of being wanted, and let work flow from that peace. Neighbors, linger at the threshold, voices low, the night scented with bread and the last warmth of lamp oil. Doctrine term unfolds, koinonia, shared life, braided by grace, where sorrows shrink and joys grow in company. Contrast resists performance that uses crowds, while fellowship keeps faces close enough to read relief and tears. Illustration shows cups raised with quiet smiles, no spectacle, only clean joy passing from hand to hand. Implication sets a pattern, mark restorations with meals, so memory can taste hope again when trials return. Pastoral charge plans calendars, schedules simple feasts, and let welcome be predictable enough to feel safe. The house settles wood, easing in the cool, and a chair remains empty for the one not yet strong to join. Doctrine term names pastoral authority as service, the courage to guard safety while refusing to crush the bruised. Contrast exposes control that confuses silence with healing, while wise guidance listens until the right word ripens. Illustration places a shawl over the empty chair, a soft promise that a place is kept without pressure. Implication urges processes that are clear, humane, and hopeful, so return paths do not feel like trials. Pastoral charge equips teams, pair listeners with helpers, and let patience write the timeline in pencil. A breeze brushes the doorway, and the lane outside invites steps that carry light beyond familiar thresholds. Doctrine term articulates witness ordinary speech about mercy seen delivered without spin and lived at close range. Contrast corrects conquest instincts because people are not prizes and truth travels best at walking speed. Illustration shows a lamp cupped against the wind, its flames steady as two friends plan a visit. Implication widens vision. Neighborhoods start to change when attention becomes a habit that refuses to rush past need. Pastoral charge assigns small starts, map names, knock gently, listen more than you advise, and keep returning. Market sounds fade to memory, yet budgets remain on the table, pencils near, and envelopes labeled with care. Doctrine term considers generosity as justice, directing resources toward persons so dignity can breathe. Contrast rebukes prestige spending that feeds image, while love funds bread, shelter, and patient time. Illustration notes a modest coin jar by the door, its clinks tuned to stories rather than to status. Implication ties celebration to provision, because joy that shares becomes stable rather than brittle. Pastoral charge makes it plain, set aside a mercy portion, review needs monthly, and keep giving quiet. The lamp is cleaned, glass cleared of soot, and tools return to their places with small, satisfying sounds. Doctrine term lifts perseverance, the grace to keep ordinary safeguards so joy does not leak away. Contrast unmasks drama that spikes and drops, while steadiness holds the line through uneventful days. Illustration tracks a key, hung on its peg, predictable and ready because order protects fragile hope. Implication honors routines, healthy habits carry the weight when feelings thin and news is dull. Pastoral charge writes a rule, do small things on time, and let constancy preach louder than speeches. Voices lower as stories deepen, and the room learns to balance candor with care, like a scale held level. Doctrine term articulates truth in love, accuracy that refuses cruelty, and kindness that refuses illusion. Contrast avoids secrecy that hides harm, while also resisting gossip that harms under the flag of zeal. Illustration pictures a notebook closed with a ribbon, commitments inside, and signatures made without fanfare. Implication builds trust slowly because credibility grows from kept promises more than from dramatic claims. Pastoral charge trains speech. Ask if words heal, protect, or serve, and let silence stand when answers fail. Night air carries a distant cart's rattle, and concern rises for those still wandering the alleys of habit. Doctrine term considers hope as disciplined expectation, not wishful fog, but vision shaped by God's faithful record. Contrast rejects despair that names people by their worst day, while faith holds room for surprise and return. Illustration lifts the lamp toward the lane, a cone of light drawing a small circle of welcome on dust. Implication directs prayer to specific names because love prays with lists and then goes where prayer points. Pastoral charge keeps watch, set reminders, send notes, and keep chairs open without turning absence into spectacle. The room remembers the search in its tidy paths, and the seeker realizes the work has reshaped the heart. Doctrine term names sanctification by practice, the way obedience trains affections through repeated care. Contrast notes that techniques without love grow cold, while love without form grows vague and thin. Illustration shows a broom stored within reach, not as a relic, but as a friend ready for tomorrow's uses. Implication promises growth where service stays near, because character settles in under the weight of small duties. Pastoral charge blesses ordinary callings, keep the shop, teach the child, visit the sick, and pray short prayers. The wick brightens for a final time, and faces catch the glow, as if morning had arrived by decision. Doctrine term gathers doxology praise that names God's ways and returns every credit to the mercy that moved first. Contrast refuses flattery that courts favor, because adoration seeks the giver even when gifts pause. Illustration hears a simple song begin steady and low, more gratitude than performance, more substance than shine. Implication aligns the heart, praise steadies motives, protects communities, and teaches courage to keep showing up. Pastoral charge keeps the center start and end days by naming God's goodness in rooms as small as this. The door stands open to the night, the house neat, and the road waiting like a line drawn toward tomorrow. Doctrine term closes with blessing the spoken good that rests on people as they walk into their tasks. Contrast resists anxious striving that outruns grace, while trust moves at a pace set by love and wisdom. Illustration shows the lamp lowered, but not extinguished, its ember ready to rise at the next needed moment. Implication seals the lesson found worth is guarded by steady care and shared out to heal other losses. Pastoral charge sends with peace carry light into small corners, count by love, and expect quiet joys to multiply.